do we deserve this? What did we do to this?
You take my water, burn my olive trees, destroy my house, steal my land, take away my job, imprison my father, kill my mother. You humiliate us all, starve us all, bomb my country, and yet I am the one to blame. Listen, I shot a rocket back. If you want to understand this statement, which was copied in his book by Noam Chomsky, which was originally actually a statement of a slogan of a Palestinian male in 2012, you need to go through the history. My name is Waqas Nawaz and I am doing this program Jasarat. This is a very exclusive show of Jasarat because it will be totally in English language. In this show, I'm going to walk you through a history of some 100 years conflict between Israel and Palestine. And in the end of the show, you would know how the people without a land made a land without its own people. Stay with me. Many people think that the conflict started in 1948, but actually it dates back to 1797, the era of Napoleon Bonaparte. The first time someone proclaimed that a separate state should be dedicated to the Jews of Europe was Napoleon Bonaparte, while he invaded the Arab Empire. So for the next 100 years, the issue was not highlighted until 1897, when a Zionist movement was established by Theodor Herzl. In 1904, JNF, Jewish National Funding, an NGO, was established, which together with the British Empire funded the purchase of the land in Palestine. Until 1917, the Palestine land was under Ottoman Empire, and after that, after the end of the First World War, Ottoman Empire fell to Great Britain, and Britain imposed a Britain mandate on Palestine land. Britain made the administrator of the Palestine land a person who was a Zionist. His name was Samuel Herbert, and together with the JNF that I mentioned was found in 1904, Samuel Herbert spent millions of dollars to buy the land for 60,000 who were migrated then from Europe to Palestine. This was the first time a mass migration was started and patroned by a state government, which was United Kingdom then. This kept on happening between 1917 until 1937, when the local Arabs, they realized that the demographics are going to change now. That led to a revolt we call Arab Revolt, in which local clashes started happening between the Jews and the Muslims. This led to the government to think about their policy about the migration, and they put a ban in 1937 to the official migration of the Jews from Europe to Palestine. But this also marks the era of Holocaust between 1935 to 1941, when the Jews were oppressed in Europe, and that also led to migration when many Jews actually sailed through boats to Palestine and started settling there. Between 1937 to 1940, two solutions were presented. One was a two-state solution, which was to make a land Arab predominant, another land the Jews predominant, and the Jerusalem would be under the United Kingdom government. Then there was a second solution called a one-state solution, in which the land or government will be the same, but two ethnicities or two nations would remain within the country. Both these solutions would not get acceptance, especially from the local Arabs. At the end of 1945, when the Second World War ended and the British realized they would not be able to keep their hold on the Palestinian mandate, a very important event happened, an event that is called King David Hotel attack in 1947, in which an extremist Zionist movement called Argonne, they bombarded the hotel, many people were killed, and that was a reaction to the government ban on the migration of the people from Europe to Palestine. UK realized they would not be able to hold the control anymore. In 1947, UNO was established and UK handed over the control to United Nations. September 1947, a resolution was passed which was held in action on November 29, 1947, in which UN proposed a two-state solution. Arab land, the Israeli land, and the Jerusalem would be still under the International Board of Trustees, or you can say under the United Nations control. The Arabs did not agree to this option. The Zionists, they agreed to this option because this was the first legal admission of their existence or their state. The era between 1947 to 1948, a war erupted that's called Arab-Israel War, and I would like to mention here the era of Nkaba. Nkaba is the era when the local Jewish extremist paramilitary forces, Haganah and the Argon and the IDF, Israel Defense Forces, they actually started mass killing of the Palestinians. 700,000 Palestinians, they had to leave their houses and they became what we call Palestinian refugees along the border between Palestine and Jordan. To this date, there are third generation of those refugees who are still being raised, born, being raised, and spend their life, are forced to spend their life in those camps. I would like to mention the name of city Jaffa, who was demolished and their houses were demolished. 400 villages were demolished and they had to take refugees. This city is the same city whose refugees later on were re-established by the UN in what city we call as Sheikh Jarrah. This is a unique example in the history when people are evicted from their houses, documents are burned so that they cannot reclaim their houses. But this was a unique example when not the document, but actually the houses were demolished, bulldozed so that they cannot come back and they cannot reclaim their land. The term land is very important in this whole Palestine-Israel conflict because this is all about the land. 2000 years ago, some promise was made to some great-grandfathers about this land, and now this promise is being imposed. Between 1948 to 1967, there were local clashes between the Palestinians and the local Israelis, and they were trying to expand what they call as the state of Israel. 1967 is called the Six-Day War. In Six-Day War, they had a fight between Egypt, Syria, and Jordan, and they got West Bank, the Gaza Strip, the Golan Heights, as well as the control over East Jerusalem. So now this was the first time when the whole city of Jerusalem was under the control of Israel. Then came 1973 war, when on Yom Kippur, these Arab countries, including Egypt and Syria and Jordan, they inflicted a war on Israel to regain their land, but actually they lost, and they lost the Sinai Desert. The era between 1973 up till now is marked by the creation of PLO, the creation of Hamas, local movements to regain their land, the state strategies to expand the land, some peace accords called Oslo Accord. Now let's come to the current issue, what's happening. What's happening in Sheikh Jarrah. So you need to understand the geography of this land, that the country that started in 1947 when the demography was like that, 1.3 million Arabs, 0.6 million Jews. And what is the demography now? 1.8 million Arabs, 9 million Jews. Let's talk about the borders. An Arab state, an Israel state, and the controversial city of Jerusalem that was under UN. And now what happened? The Arab state contracted and is limited to only the West Bank and Gaza Strip. The Jerusalem is totally occupied by the Jewish settlements. What is the settlements? So what's happening? They are basically, the Jewish are from all over the world. They are brought in to Israel and they're given the land status, the right to buy the land. So recently in Sheikh Jarrah, where 500 Palestinian families
You are stealing my
because,
house.
and these are the families. Let's go back to Nkaba, when the city of Jaffa was demolished by the paramilitary forces of Israel. Then with the cooperation of Jordan bought this land in Sheikh Jarrah. And then with the cooperation of United Nations Relief and Work Agency, UNWRA, a settlement was made where refugees were allowed to live. And now a court case was filed by one of the Jewish organization called Sharman, and they actually won, and their claim was that before 1948 this area was being occupied by the local Jews. No alternatives houses were given in city of Jaffa because Jaffa is no more on the land. No alternate houses were given in the village of Deir Yassin because that is no more on the land. As I have mentioned, this was the first time in history when the houses were demolished so that the people cannot reclaim it back. This is not the first time a court was used by the state for the Jewish settlement. Last year in November, in area called Silvan, there was another organization named Kohanim claimed a similar claim and they also won. So now you know why I call it people without a land made the land without its own people. 700,000 refugees still living in the Palestinian refugee camps on Jordan-Israel border. Their third generations are being born and raised in those camps. No one talks about it. You want to talk about the African American rights and the enslaving of the African Americans in the segregation period? Then compare and tell your generations also about this ethnocratic attitude of Israel that's happening right now. Why I call it ethnocratic? There are 4 classes living in the country of Israel. Israeli citizens who are Jews, they are citizens. Palestinian Arabs who were in East Jerusalem, they are permanent residents. They are not the citizens. The third, the Palestinians living in the West Strip, they are the ones who have been separated from the rest of the country by a fence. And the fourth, the Palestinian refugees whose land does not exist on the map of the world. That's what I call an ethnocratic state. You want to talk about how the demographics have changed? Look at the population ratio then and the population ratio now. You want to know the new ways of humiliation and disgracing their own people? Look at how the IDF forces make the young Palestinian boys walk nude in the streets. And it's not happening only at the state level, it's happening at the level of the local settlements where some Jews sometimes, if they are angry, they put their car right into the pedestrian and hit them. And in the end, the media report them as an innocent victim. If you want to know how a movement that starts 200 years ago finally gains its objective using all the state machinery and the media, look at the Ben-Gurion statement in 1947. In 1947, when the resolution 181 was accepted and Israel was created, this is what Ben-Gurion said. The Jewish state now being offered to us is not the Zionist objective, but it can serve as a decisive stage along the path to greater Zionist implementation. It will consolidate in Palestine within the shortest possible time, the real Jewish force which will lead us to our historical goal. Shortest possible time means last 75 years. So this is how the people without a land made a land without his own people. Probably these local people never existed for them. This is not me saying this. This is what Golda Meir, the Prime Minister of Israel in 1969, she said that. What she said? It was not as though there was a Palestinian people in Palestine considering itself as a Palestinian people, and then we came and threw them out and took their country away from them. It's not like that. Actually, they did not exist. So this is what happens when the religion occupies the head and the minds instead of the souls and the hearts, and then humanity does not exist. Today, Gaza is bleeding. The West Bank is shrinking. Sheikh Jarrah is burning. Aqsa is burning. Today, there is no discrimination between what we call a war crime versus we call self-defense. From a 10-year-old girl to a 90-year-old elderly woman, everyone is being shot with the missiles, with the jets. The media is silent. Al Jazeera building has been demolished to dust. Where are the people? Where are the humans? Human Rights Organization. Where is UNO? Where is Security Council? Where is OIC? Or they are still saying OIC? Where is Arab League? Where is everyone? Where is Black Lives Matter? Here human life is mattering. Are these kids not humans? Are these people not human enough to have some religious freedom? Basic human rights? Are these kids not innocent? Why? Why we are silent? Why the media is silent? Why the world is silent? Why we are so biased? Why we cannot just discourage this oppression, this mass killing? Why the story always starts from the middle? Why the reaction to stones are missiles, jets, demolishment? I ask, why? Please try to answer.